Welcome to another episode of Better Catholics. We have a different guest now. We have a very young person named Joshua Socorro. Joshua Socorro, would you like to say something about yourself?
Well, I'm currently 16 years old. I'm currently studying in high school, junior. I'm also a youth from St. Jude Parish. I'm one of the altar servers there, and I
Uh-huh.
partake in many of the youth ministries that ongo every single day at that church. And so far, it's been quite fun and entertaining,
Mhm.
considering this pandemic that has been going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gives me another option to do. It gives me a chance to be closer to God,
Mm.
in this time of need.
Yes.
I'd say for
Yes.
myself.
And I see that you're very active also in the church. I see that by experience wise. I mean, I see him all the time in San Jude. He's very active as an altar server. He's very active in the youth ministry, among other things. So thank you, Joshua, for really making time for this episode. This is important. The topic that we are going to today, talk about today, because it has something to do with vocation, and in particular, the vocation to the priesthood or religious life or consecrated life. Um, a vocation is, of course, we know that as a calling from God. We are called in a specific way, particular way, but the universal calling is always to become holy. And by responding to the call of God into the priesthood and religious life is just one of the different, many different vocational aspects that we are going to talk about today. So, without further ado, let's talk about vocation. Here in the CNMI, one of the things that I noticed right away is the lack of vocation. We
To
don't
the
even
priesthood.
to the priesthood. We don't even have a seminary, which is understandable because we're a very small island, um, and a small diocese with not even probably 40,000 Catholics.
53. Oh, sorry,
Catholics.
total population.
Yeah. So with that, it's understandable that we don't have a seminary. We don't have too many people entering the seminary, but to not have one uh, person studying to become a priest is actually a gloomy, a
Yes,
gloomy
yeah,
reality. Yeah.
True. And vocation to the priesthood and religious life, we specifically put it in our one of our top priorities in our pastoral plan that will end in December of 2022.
Mhm.
And our last ordination to the priesthood was 7 years ago with Father James Balahadia.
Mhm.
And since then, we don't have anyone lined up to enter the seminary. We did have potential candidates in the past. We tried a few models, a few perhaps strategies on how to encourage young people to consider the priesthood. If we want to talk specifically about vocation to the priesthood, but for some reasons we haven't found the magic formula if there
Mhm.
is one. So we
Right.
really need to pray hard and work harder.
Yes.
And I don't know, Donna, how about your youngest? Can we ask him to sign up for the priesthood?
Well, if that's his calling, then what can I do, right? I have to support him. But here in it's it's outreach too. I mean, you don't necessarily need a seminary here to to entice or encourage, right, or influence young men and women to enter a religious vocation. You need the outreach.
Mhm.
I know every year there's an annual celebration, and I hear it at the close of mass. Please, the appeal is there. That's when the
Mhm.
appeal is made. That's the only
Right,
time I
right.
hear it. I don't really hear people going out into the community and saying, here, read this pamphlet. Is this your spiritual calling? Come and let's pray together.
Yes, yes.
Let's pray and talk about it. I don't hear that. Maybe there is that I'm unaware of. I do not know. My oldest son was an altar server for many years at Cristo Rey Church. He even served with our late Bishop Emeritus.
Mhm.
We have a photo of that. I mean, those are things we we um we try to get our kids, let them decide if that's their spiritual calling, then so be it. It was not his. And I have another son, and we also encouraged him to be an altar server, to serve at the church. It wasn't for him,
Right.
but he's the one that goes to 6 a.m. Mass every Sunday without telling. He's the one that participates, in events. But being an altar server was not his calling. So I think it really depends. We need to do a better, to be better at outreach.
Yes.
Right.
And encouraging and asking them, reflect, is this for you? Of course, we
Yes.
cannot force, but you can get the thinking process started. I don't know, Joshua, if that is in your calling. I jokingly told
Yeah, we
Father
have.
Melvin, his collar's not white, his shoes are, so it's still down at shoe level. Maybe eventually it will work up to his collar. I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's for him to determine and for him to decide.
Yeah, that's right.
And-
Hey, priesthood is it's a beautiful vocation. It really is, because it allows the person, the priest, to become part of the person's life from the earliest stage of human development until the person is buried, 6 feet under. He becomes part of that process. Being able to touch the lives of people is a beautiful thing, that our ministry that the priest does for the person. But no matter how attractive the priesthood may be, still we are having difficulty attracting the young people to enter the seminary. Do you have any thoughts? What do you like about priests? Do you
Not
have any-
specifically Father
Yeah,
Melvin.
not necessarily, not specifically about me, but priests in general. What do you like about priests?
Well, of course, priests, they take certain vows, partaking their holy orders in this holy life. What I like about priests also is how during the Mass, they partake the role of Jesus Christ,
Mhm.
as he did many years ago. And he serves in accordance with that way as well, always being seen as that figure, we, his people, and him, the priest, Jesus
Right.
Christ. Especially during the Eucharist, I always favor that part, repeating that same word over and over again.
Yeah.
Take this, memory of me, all of that. We're still doing the same ritual that has been happening for thousands of years.
Right.
And it still amazes me to how up to this present day, we can keep it up,
Yeah. So
It's
the
not-
sacraments,
Yes.
the sacrament that the priest is privileged to grace the people with, see that how beautiful priesthood is. But there are reasons why, for some reason, the formula or the lack thereof is not working. It's not only here in the diocese of Chalancanoa. It's a universal crisis that we are experiencing in the church. We are experiencing a reduction in the number of people who are entering the seminary, and if ever they enter the seminary, they will, in a few months or years, they will leave. They do not finish the process, and they will just leave. So probably it's good to know, to understand what better formula that we may be able to develop. We probably should consider the things like the reasons why, the problems, what makes priesthood less attractive to the young people.
Yeah, good point, Father Melvin. Many things come to mind. One is I ask myself, are we giving good examples to the
Mhm.
youth and young
Yeah.
adults? That sense of modeling,
Mhm.
or
The witnessing.
witnessing, is this way of life attractive enough for you, Joshua, for example?
Mm.
I'm not like, putting you on the spot to sign up and
Yes, he is.
and again,
Yeah.
what can we do more? And
Yeah.
how about our lifestyle? You mentioned so beautifully about the sacrament.
Yeah.
There are arts in ministry where you see us celebrating the sacrament,
Yes.
preaching, anointing the sick, giving communion, doing works of social justice, and hearing confession. Now, these are aspects, or one would call arts of ministry.
Mhm.
But how about us as a person, right? And also, let's face it, the reality of the church with the sexual abuse,
Mm.
involving minors, that definitely affected,
Right.
not just Chalan Canoa, but the entire diocese.
Yeah.
So that's another reality we need to take into. And perhaps another one is the reality of secular Catholicism,
Mm.
right? I always say, like, perhaps, Donna, Father Melvin, and I, when we were growing up, I think in our previous episode, we talked about how things were somewhat different. But now there are many other competing values out there,
Oh yes.
right? And the road less taken would be perhaps the path to the priesthood. Or others would say they can still serve God, do works of social justice without getting ordained, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know. There's really a lot of soul searching here.
Right.
We really need to embark on a journey, a reflective, perhaps
Mhm.
session as a community on again what needs to be done and what is the
Mhm.
reality.
Do you think, Joshua, we are not as priests here in the diocese, we are not doing enough or witnessing to the young people?
Mm, in my opinion, it couldn't just be by witnessing. A lot of things are introduced to
Yes.
the youth, the young people, by how they're influenced, by their parents, by their
Mm.
elderly.
Yeah.
An example would be sports. A lot of
Mm.
these youth, a lot of kids love to play sports. They dream of becoming athletes,
Mm.
superstar athletes that hopefully
Mhm.
one day they will be recognized.
Mhm.
And maybe that trend kind of just
Mhm.
slowly pulls them away
Mhm.
and kind of rifts them away from the love of God. Not per se the love of God, but to his calling
Yes.
in a way.
Mhm.
You know. Another one would be a lot of people nowadays, sad reality, technology is becoming quite advanced
Yeah.
and a lot of us are resorting to it.
Mm.
And that's something that the youth have also been, I always see it,
Uh-huh.
using, on their phones, whatever you say, whatever they might be doing.
Hmm.
It's hard to try and break that barrier to kind of
Right.
have them open up to Christ, to God, and to
Mhm.
have them take his hand so that they could also be guided in the light of Christ.
There's a lot of competing factors.
Yes.
Thank God it's not only the
It's not just you
the fault
guys.
of the
Yeah.
priest, but there are other factors too.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. All I see in young people today, they're always on their phones. They are always playing Mobile Legend or whatever online game they are playing in their cell phones, and that distracts them from the voice that's probably speaking to them, telling them, "Hey, why don't you try priesthood?" But if I am bombarded by this noise of technology, um, mobile games, social media, and etc., then I probably won't be able to hear it. So if that is what you're saying, then that's really a valid reason, among other things.
Plus, also, I think practical reasons are important to be taken into consideration. What do I mean by that? At least for our context here in Chalan Canoa, there are youth and young adults who are children of migrant workers.
Mhm.
The parents came here, work here, and children born here become US citizens. And there is that unspoken desire also to help the family.
Mm.
So I do ask some of this youth and young adults whom sometimes I can see that I think this person has a vocation to the priesthood, but their response would be, I'm not against the idea, but not yet. Or
Mhm.
one would say, my priority right now is to really help my parents.
Yes.
Now that I'm 21, I can legally petition my parents to become residents, then eventually U.S. citizens. And that also, as I see, as something that we cannot just neglect. And then so comes then the question of, okay, if we don't have, at least for now, candidates for the priesthood, what would be some alternatives, right? At least we provide them with that space, that venue to
Right.
discern
Right.
and find out for themselves if it's really for them.
Mhm.
But if not, what will be the future of the diocese? Majority of our priests are what we call guest priests, including
Mhm.
Father Melvin and Father Arman from the Adorno Fathers. So, by the way, you forgot to acknowledge your congregation
Sorry.
in our last recording. We also have the OAR, Order of the Augustinian Recollects. We also have priests from other dioceses who are on loan. Like we have an
the
agreement
Jesuits too.
with the bishop. So we have one from Archdiocese of Agania and then one from the Archdiocese of Capiz, and we have the Jesuits. And we know that time will come that they will go back to their communities, to their dioceses. So what will happen,
Mhm.
right? So I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. You can solve this, Donna.
I
Help
wish
us.
I could. I
Yeah.
really cannot. But I don't know. What do you think, Joshua? Do you feel like even though this may be your calling, it's something internal, but you feel like, but I'm a man and I need to have a family.
Mhm.
I mean, is this something you're comparing at this time? Is something that you're weighing the pros and cons? If I'm going to go into the religious life, choose that life, or am I going to choose this life and do what everyone else does? I have a wife, I have children, I'm the breadwinner of my family. I mean, I think those are things uh, that go through your mind and you think about it.
Yes. Especially with other teenagers around my age, it's
Mhm.
very critical because
Yeah.
this is the start of their life.
Mhm.
This is how they're gonna eventually end up to be as in the future for them to be. A lot of them pursue different careers amongst the ones that have been the ones that give us opportunities of,
Mhm.
as course of Bishop mentioned, a better lifestyle for the families.
Mm.
A lot of them see that as a priority.
Mm.
But in my opinion, with all of this happening, all I can really say is not only for myself but for other youth is I just have to keep praying to God,
Mhm.
because one day, as he did in the past, as people have turned away from him,
Mhm.
people will start turning back,
Mm.
and awaiting for the second coming of Jesus. Yes, I've always been having that thought 24/7 of what will happen. Am I ready? What will it be like?
Mhm.
And how would us, his people, his loved children, how would we react to it? And it is really a lot,
Mhm.
especially for youth to kind of process. But in general topics, with this priesthood and religious life, a lot of them think it's less attractive. But
Mm.
if you really set aside and stop thinking that it's boring, it could
Mhm.
actually be somewhat beneficial to you.
Mhm.
A lot of people nowadays suffer from mental illnesses, and they always have problems with trying to succeed in life. I've had multiple friends like that, and I've always told them to think of it religiously,
Mhm.
and to kind of get closer with God. And one way or another, it works out.
Mm.
Priesthood and religious life can also improve your health overall as a
Mm.
person, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And those benefits, those factors are what would really impact us as a human being, and that would therefore give us more drive to become, you know, more, how would I say this, more dedicated
Mm.
to this holy order.
Mhm.
And it's all in a matter of work and time that God has for us. We just gotta fit in the right pieces. He's laid all the pieces, but it's just us. We're the ones
Yeah.
to
And
kind of
like you
piece it.
said, there are so many
Ah.
distractions, you know, and
Yes,
that's
yeah.
why
exactly.
sometimes we don't see all these pieces.
Yes.
Not a single piece actually. It's really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. And everything works in God's timing, right?
Mm.
I like that description of it's all there and how we need to just cooperate with the grace of God, right? I want to like ask Donna and Joshua because Father Melvin and I are ordained, we're priests, and you mentioned about the beauty and the joy of being priest. But what would you consider as a turn off
Yes.
for priests? What would discourage you or the young or people in general? Because we're human beings like
Right.
anyone else, but there's also an expectation for us, right? Because we signed up for this, right? What would you consider as examples, perhaps, or reasons that you would be discouraged or turned off
Mhm.
because of a particular deed or something that we've failed to do or yeah, I think it's important for us to
Yeah.
know as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, probably a turnoff for a lot of people nowadays. They would always overthink and they'd always fail to see what the true topic of priests are. You know, they never see the real passion of them and how they work through Christ. They would always say that, oh, I want to have a family when I grow up, or I want to be well known, and famous. But in reality, you don't have to be rich and well known to be recognized. As in our Catholic faith, of course, there are many people who are recognized alone just by their deeds. And a lot of people fail to see that. They fail to look deeply and to kind of, how to say this, deconstruct the topic so that they could find out the bigger picture. You know, um,
That's a good
struggle.
word, deconstruction.
Mm.
Yep.
Very philosophical.
I know. How old are you, John?
I know.
I'm only 16 years old.
Going back, Donna, to the Scrabble word. That's
another, well, that's actually kind of long. There's only seven
Yeah.
tiles, right? So, I mean, I guess you pretty much said it all.
Yeah.
For me, I would think there's politics in every environment, right? In family, in the community. I'm sure there's even politics in the church.
Oh no.
Oh, there's so I think it's just the expectation. I don't think I could handle it because, like you said, you're human too, and sometimes I think people's perception is you're not allowed to be human because we put you on pedestals. We go to you during our most trying times. We confess to you. We confide in you. You come and you anoint our sick. You pray over our dead. You're the one that unites in
Solemnize the
marriage.
marriage,
Yes. So for me, I just don't think I could handle being in the religious order because the expectation is so high that I feel like if I let one person down, I'm done. I have not done my part and I'm a letdown. So I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but we're you're people. You're not demigods. You're not. You may sometimes think you are. I don't know, but that's how we lay people perceive you as being. You're better than us, and that's a very high standard. And I don't think I could live up to it. That's me.
And that's partly the reason, because the expectation is so high on our part that one single wrong move that we do, that's it. Everything will collapse.
Yes.
The idea of a person about priesthood will collapse, and that is very discouraging for a lot of people, especially to the young. And that's probably one of the reasons why they say, "Oh, I'm not going to become a priest anymore." Look at that priest; he is driving a Lamborghini or something, and he took the vow of poverty,
Mm.
or he promised to be poor and simple, and yet look at his lifestyle. That's a major turn off. And I've heard that a lot from people. Actually, there was one case, and it was in the Philippines, that um, he said the reason why he doesn't want to become a priest is because he doesn't want to be identified with the hypocrites.
Mm. Mm.
He doesn't want to be identified with the hypocrites,
Mm.
meaning with the priest, and that's because he was disappointed with the lifestyle of so many priests.
Mm. Mm.
Major turn off.
That's a good point. And it really, I hope for all of us priests, that kind of comment will serve as a really a point for reflection.
Right.
And that's why I think it's important for us also to first, in any vocation, whether vocation in general or for the priesthood, be grounded in prayer.
Mhm.
Right? And who is our model? Jesus himself in his life and ministry. And when we said yes, we know that God will give us the grace to be able to do what is asked of us. I remember this one priest who was asked. He was already successful in the world standard, preached, invited to a lot of engagements, wrote books and all of that. And he was asked, what in your ministry has been like the most successful part, of your like X number of years as a priest? And says, you actually don't talk about success. He said, the better question would be, have you been faithful?
Mhm.
And I like that response because in any sacrament, marriage, single blessedness, priesthood, religious life, there's always an invitation for us to be faithful to our chosen vocation.
Mhm.
Right? Who was it? Was it Mother Teresa who said, right? It's not about success, but really your fidelity, your sense of faithfulness to your vocation. And I still am with your word on hypocrisy,
Mhm.
right? How can we be consistent with our way of preaching, and how do you translate that to our way of living?
Right. It's because they see that, people see that duplicity in us. We talk, with highfalutin languages, high theology, philosophy, all beautiful words, inspiring words, but they don't see that in how we live our lives as priests. There's a contradiction that people see in us. So that somehow, is very discouraging for a lot of people. I wish we can change that. So really, the lifestyle of the priest matters a lot. If we want to inspire vocation, maybe it's time that we should look at our lifestyle as priests. Maybe we're not witnessing enough.
True. True.
Yeah. And also, I mean, there are so many misconceptions too about priesthood. There was one time when I was in New Jersey, I was asked by one of the young people, the youth that I used to minister to. He said, "Do you eat burgers?" Yeah, do you eat burgers? As if because they probably were thinking that priests eat less and they eat.
Look at us.
Simple meals.
That's another
only.
contradiction.
But there are a lot of things that they do not know about priesthood and the seminary formation. Some people say, "Oh, in the seminary, all they do is pray and study and pray and study. It's boring." These are all misconceptions.
Yes.
I'm not sure. Do you think that like that? Towards seminary life?
Seminary life, as far as I know, there is, of course, a lot of prayers, masses, classes, and about their faith. But I always know that there's some recreational time where they have that time for themselves to experience themselves as a human being.
Right.
Like always trying to find out what they could live their life to, but not too much at that same time.
Yes,
Kind
yes.
of leveling the table.
Well, it's
Yeah.
good that it's good that you know that.
Right.
A lot-
I'm impressed.
I'm surprised that you know that because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't.
Yes,
a lot
yeah.
of people
It's
don't.
true.
And the
The
key
f-
here is to live a balanced life.
Mhm.
Earlier you mentioned about, some young people wanting to do great in sports. But there is joy also in being a priest and can do sports.
Right.
That's
right.
true.
And then for me, sports is a very important part of who I am.
Mm.
I play tennis. I try to do regular exercise. I've joined marathons, half marathons. How to live a balanced life. It's not all about reading and every aspect of ministerial priesthood is important, but it's also important to get in touch with the human side of who you are and not to neglect it, because you don't lose your sexuality, your personhood, because you're ordained, right? But in fact, you become fully who you are if you embrace the total Ryan, the totality of a person.
Right. Yeah. What about you, Donna? Do you have any misconception about priesthood or even
Okay,
even
off the record. I'm scared.
Well, I went to Mount Carmel, so we've experienced a lot of different priests
The
in our time.
Capuchins,
The Capuchin were
missionaries,
very real here during that time. The diocesan was here as well. They were our teachers, so jokingly, the Capuchin dress in robes, brown robes, and they walk around a little more humbly than others. And
Why do you look at me?
So I don't know. That's probably how we distinguished. What do you call them? Different orders,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
They're the ones that truly live the poverty, chastity, obedience. These folks here, they're more inclined to receiving nicer things versus the other order. So I don't really have an opinion, but nonetheless, I still put you up on a pedestal above myself. I look up to you because I have expectations of you. I expect you to guide me. I expect you to offer me something to think about, like how I was sharing with Father Melvin. I've heard that some of your sermons, your homilies, are very thought-provoking, right? So you really dig deep into somebody's mind and soul. I don't know, is that true?
Yes, it is.
Is it really something that you think about even when you go home?
Yes, I always
And you
question
share?
myself.
I mean, but it's something you want to figure out. You're the intellect. You're the spiritual guidance. I think there's just so much pressure, maybe.
Right. That is true. It's true.
I really think there's a lot of pressure. I can't say it enough. We put you above us. We feel you're the shepherd of the Lord. You're the one here that is supposed to guide us and correct us. So
I wonder, Donna, if that, I don't know. I don't want to say, oh, you're wrong. We shouldn't be put on a pedestal. There is certainly, there are expectations, right? And rightfully so, because we signed up for this and to be that person in our practice of service, to preach the word, to celebrate the sacraments, to do pastoral counseling, to be available and all of that. But what if we fall short of those expectations? Because sometimes, right, when just like in a high structure, when you're up high, when you jump, the impact would be more painful, right? Rather than perhaps looking at everybody as equal, just different roles. I don't know if that would help. In that way, it's not as painful if we fail you. Does that help? Let's say, you're ordained, you're Father Melvin, you're Bishop Ryan, but really you're also Melvin and Ryan. that we can relate with you. Yes, we expect you to be A, B, C, D, E, but you're just as human as I am. We can do happy hour. We can talk about God, about life, in sharing of a meal, in just, enjoying sunset here in Oliai, and all of that. And maybe I'm being defensive because right, but that's true. Especially our people in the diocese, they really look up to the priests, right?
And it's looking up to, but it's respect.
Mm.
We have the utmost respect. So when you do something that's out of character, of course, that's so unexpected. And I don't know if we feel let down or discouraged, or the sad reality is, oh no, they're just like us. But we want to look up to you. You're supposed to be better than us. I don't know. That's just me.
Well, we'll try our best to be the best version of who we should
Sure.
be. It's like the Bishop Ryan said, we sign up for this, and we knew from the very beginning of our seminary formation the things that we are going to face as priests and religious, and if and even the religious order or the seminary, we set standards that the seminarians should be able to reach, at least in order for the whoever is in charge of approving them to the priesthood, to qualify them whether they really are ready or not. That it's normal. So on the part of the people expecting us to be this and that, I think it's also normal too. But we are hoping that when we fail, when we fall as priests and religious, people will also be there to acknowledge that we are human beings. We fall, we fail. We are hoping that through this conversation, through this dialogue, we're able to at least open the minds of especially the young people to consider the vocation to the priesthood and consecrated life. Want to become a priest? Call bishop. If you want to become a nun, the Maturana sisters, the Mercedarian sisters are doing a very good job. They're not publicizing too much, but they are in need of help. So maybe they would want to consider becoming a nun. It's good. It's beautiful. I hope also that we as a group here are able to ignite in the hearts of people, the zeal, the desire to really become a big priest or a religious someday. No pressure, Joshua. Of course, but if you're considering,
and always to be cognizant that in the end, this is the work of the Holy Spirit.
Yes, it is. It is.
Right? Saint Paul said, I planted, Apollos watered, but God allowed the growth. So I guess we do the best we can and let God do the rest. We're hopeful, but Lord, please, 7 years already.
Yes. Well, it's been a good dialogue. Thank you, Joshua, for gracing us with your presence, your youthful thoughts about priesthood, about religious life. We're hoping that you become the best version of yourself after this conversation, after this dialogue. If you want to consider priesthood, thank you very much.
No pressure.
No pressure. But if you're considering another vocation, occupational vocation, is also good. It's our way to become holy. Just always consider that in everything you do is always our universal vocation to become holy, to become better Catholics.